I don't know what to do on screen for second channel content, but here we are anyway. I think I have a great idea of maybe playing the Season 1 trailer for Boardwalk Empire. Boardwalk, not Broadwalk, Boardwalk Empire. I don't even remember where this sentence started. This is talking about the first two seasons of Boardwalk Empire. I watched them both recently. I've been putting off starting the third season these last 2 days because I want to talk about my thoughts as they are now without being coloured by the next episode or the first episode of Season 3 and collect them and put them up for a video on the second channel. So here we are doing that. I assume I've tried to talk about Boardwalk Empire on stream a bunch. Nobody's seen it. Nobody seems to care. Because obviously they have no reference point for it. So I thought to clear up the reference point, having no reference point, we'll play the trailer to begin with here. I don't know how long this video will be. It depends how long I have until the laptop dies. Fucking scroll up to the goddamn top of my little subheading here I have on my sticky notes. We got a lot of notes. I could go on for hours. This show is fucking fantastic. One of the best things I ever saw in my life. Really like it. Recommend it to everybody. Well, not everybody. Not everything is for everybody. It's very violent. There's some racism because it's set in the 20s. There's a lot of sexism. It deals a lot with sexism. So if you're... Is there rape? Kind of implicitly in that one Jimmy scene where Angela clearly isn't into it, but then she either gives up or becomes into it. Not very good on the consent there, Jimmy. I feel like there is a more visceral rape scene, maybe? No, I don't think so, now that I'm thinking about it. The violence is very visceral. This is very much an R18+ show. It's an HBO show, boobs everywhere and all the such. Hopefully there aren't boobs in this trailer, though we're uploading it onto YouTube. We're not streaming right now, so it might be fine. That's my overall thoughts. It's great. Fantastic. We'll watch the Season 1 trailer just so you have some reference points. Steve Buscemi is the lead man. The writer on it was a former writer on The Sopranos, so if you're into The Sopranos, it's kind of a natural extension in the same way Mad Men is, but sort of going in very different directions. We'll talk about that all in a second. We're going to be spoiling everything here, so don't complain about spoilers. I've started doing spoiler warnings more, just to be a nice gentleman to all of our audience members. But here we go. Let's watch the fucking trailer. I've been a fucking clusterfuck at the beginning of this video, so maybe I can collect my thoughts as we watch the trailer.
Mr. Mayor, fellow members of the City Council, in less than 2 hours, liquor will be declared illegal by decree of the distinguished gentlemen of our nation's Congress.
Oh, it's about prohibition too. It's about gangsters basically selling illegal liquor now that liquor has been made illegal. In fact, they kind of fought for liquor to become illegal so they could be the only ones selling it and make a goddamn fortune. Set in the 20s, literally 1920, Atlantic City, the US of A. It's about mobsters from New York City, Atlantic City, Chicago, and the such. Oh, and it's also got, like, they're all real people. Historical, it's a historical fiction piece. They're not all real people, but a lot of them are. Like, Steve Buscemi plays Nucky Thompson, who is a real person. Lucky Luciano, who's mentioned in The Sopranos by Meadow in one scene for starting, basically, the mafia in America. He's also in it. Arnold Rothstein is a Jewish mobster. Is it a mobster? Is a mobster only an Italian thing? Mafia is an Italian word. Is mobster? I don't know. An organized crime leader. Leaders. Though, Nucky's also a politician. He's the treasurer. But anyway, let it play out, for fuck's sake.
In less than 2 hours, liquor will be declared illegal by decree of the distinguished gentlemen of our nation's Congress. To those beautiful, ignorant bastards.
January 16th, 8:03 p.m., Johnny Torrio meeting with Nucky Thompson.
Mr. Torrio?
Jim Colosimo, Arnold Rothstein, and Charlie Luciano.
Jimmy Darmody. Al Capone. You guys gonna get into the liquor business too?
This trailer makes it... I didn't pre-watch this trailer. This makes it seem very action-heavy exciting, as trailers tend to do.
Your friend from New York, he just took us for 90 grand.
You can't be half a gangster, Nucky. Not anymore.
This entire city, this Sodom, will be cleansed all at once.
Are really hamming up the violence and the sex, which there is plenty of. I don't know if that trailer was necessarily the best, but it gives you some reference points. You've seen the characters, you've seen the outfits. It's very 20s in its aesthetic, just like Mad Men, where it's very 60s in its aesthetic because it's set in the 60s. This is set in the 20s. They feel very authentic. How the fuck would I know if it's authentic? I'm not a historian, nor did I exist in these time periods. The 90s is ancient history to me, you fucking old fucks. But I got a fucking shit ton of things to say about this. It's an ensemble show, just like Mad Men, and just like I realize why my fucking thing always fucks up. The sticky note shows up where you cursorize. I just recorded my first football thing on my third now football channel. So if you're in a fucking rugby league, you might want to head over there. It's an ensemble cast show, which means there's a shit ton of characters going on in a bunch of different locations, like Game of Thrones or The Sopranos. Mad Men is an ensemble, but most of the characters are in the same place, where they're all in the office, or they're in Ted Shaw's office, or they're with Betty, whatever she's doing. It's set in 3 locations, right? Things are going on in New York, things are going on in Chicago, and things are going on in Atlantic City. Most of it happens in Atlantic City, but Chicago and New York are all these things. It very much feels like different countries or whatever are operating, crime countries operating with different leaders and things like that. Explain the premise, links to the Mad Men and to Sopranos and Mad Men. It is very much a spiritual successor to the Sopranos in the same way Mad Men is, in very different ways, as a matter of fact. In the same ways as in one of the lead understudies of David Chase wrote Mad Men, Matthew Weiner. I think I didn't fuck up his name. And Terrence Winter wrote Boardwalk Empire. These are sort of now the proteges are making their own shows, and they are very highly renowned as well, just like The Sopranos. I think Mad Men is better than The Sopranos. Is Boardwalk in the same category as these two? Absolutely. This show is fucking incredible. Is it better than either of them? I'm going to wait and see when I finish this shit, because right now it might be better than The Sopranos. I don't know. I really like it. I don't think it's better than Mad Men, just because Mad Men might be my favorite thing ever. But it's up there. It's one of those things. And in a 3x3 of my favorite things ever, Boardwalk very well might be there. I think I said on Twitter, or to somebody on Twitter, it might have been to Miller or whatever, that I think Boardwalk is now better than like the best parts of Game of Thrones. Black Sails is another show I put up there very highly, and I don't know how they fucking rank, alright? Leave me alone. So I've watched 2 seasons. There are 12 episodes a season so far. I think the last season has 8 episodes. I like to check those things. Where to begin? Season 1 versus Season 2? Season 1 is a very strong start. It's great. It's when I say that, if I hear someone say that, I'd be like, oh, so Season 1's just okay? No, Season 1 is fucking incredible. I thought Season 1 was a lot better for Season 2, for a bulk of Season 2, but then those last 3 or 4 episodes of Season 2 hit, and it's some of the greatest shit I've ever seen in my life. And all the build-up starts to pay off. It's long-running shit is just better. It's just the best. I love long-running stuff because it gives you extra payoffs. You can build things for longer. You can establish connections that feel established more than you can do in a 90-minute movie before you start breaking shit up. Like when people start killing each other at the end of Season 2, it's like these people have histories. I believe their histories. I've seen their histories. I don't really want them to fight, but they are. And it like that emotional weight, like something like Betty and Don can't break up at the end of Season 1 and it'd have the same impact as them breaking up at the end of Season 3, and that scene and everything it means and everything we understand about these characters and this confrontation and all this good stuff. And the point to this ultimately being, I'm only at Season 2 of this show. We've got 3 seasons. There's 5 seasons of this show. And by the end of Season 5, those links, those connections are going to be even more bold, and there'll be probably even bigger moments and bigger payoffs. So I'm looking forward to that a lot. But ultimately, I think Season 2 does triumph over Season 1 a little bit. The slower parts of Season 2 are definitely slower than the slower parts of Season 1. But there are a bunch of things. I think we should start talking about Nucky Thompson, who's played by Steve Buscemi, who's our lead. He's very much more Tony Soprano than he is Don Draper, though he is kind of in the middle if we were doing a little chart thing in Paint, which I won't be doing right now. He's not as outrightly bad as Tony, I would say. And Don, when you ask the question, they're all morally ambiguous characters on purpose. But if you ask the question, is Don Draper a good person? The answer is maybe, kinda. If you ask that question for Tony Soprano, it's no. Tony Soprano is not a good person. He has moments where he's good. We relate to him a lot. We sympathize with him a lot. But ultimately, Tony Soprano, not a good person. Sympathetic, tragic, maybe, not a good person. The same can be said for Nucky Thompson. He's more of Tony Soprano than I would say than of Don Draper. Nucky's not a good person. He's very much a mobster. He's very much orders people killed. Again, Mad Men is a show about advertising, and The Sopranos and Boardwalk are both about mobsters that kill people. So Don has never killed anybody. Accidentally kind of did with the real Don Draper, but that's the whole thing. That's a guilty accident. He feels bad about it. We all understand. Though you don't if you haven't seen Mad Men. If that's the case, what the fuck is going on here? If you're a Boardwalk fan and you haven't seen Mad Men, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. But Nucky is a morally ambiguous protagonist. He is the treasurer of the city of Atlantic City, so he has a lot of institutional power, but he also has a second line of business, which is everything illegal, ordering the deaths of people, what do you call it? Being familiar with some irreparable characters. Unreparable? You know what I'm trying to say. So obviously there are a lot of benefits to having a morally ambiguous protagonist of the bat. It makes things interesting. You can't really tell who Nucky is, what he's trying to do, what he's been through. This is teased at the end of season 2 that there's a lot more to Nucky's backstory than we understand. At the beginning, you're sort of more on Nucky's side, and I feel like this is how it works. Like the college episode in The Sopranos is when you really figure out Tony Soprano, probably not the best dude. Up until then, like everybody he's like either been mean to, it's either been played off as a joke or they kind of deserved it, which is kind of how they play season 1 mostly. Like Nucky is being attacked and he's kind of defending himself, and he like hurt some clan members. The Ku Klux Klan is very much a thing in this show, which is an interesting whole thing. We're not going to get into Chalky just yet. What was I fucking saying about Nucky? It's sort of played. I know there's a switch moment where you're like, oh, Nucky's not really a good person, kind of a fuck. There's some very Sopranos trappings here more than Mad Men, where the Sopranos people will just like fuck up when you know what to do. Like in the scene where Eli comes to Nucky in their house and is like trying to apologize, trying to get on his good side, but Nucky just won't forgive him and says like, he starts to indicate that he will. Narratively, the narrative starts to indicate that he will, and he's fucking with Eli. He starts to go, yeah, just apologize to me and it'll be good. And then he's like, it ramps it up and he's like, kiss my fucking feet and then go die, and then maybe I'll forgive you. And it's just like, so much could have been avoided if Nucky just swallowed his pride and forgave his brother in that moment. I really like the Eli Nucky stuff in season 2. Their extremes, their relationship. It's a lot of fun how it's explored and things like that. But that was a very Sopranos moment of me, for like where you're like yelling at Paulie or Christopher to not fuck this up. Like it's so obvious, just like let it go. And the thing these shows are saying, they understand that. And you could mistakenly think that's like a cheap way of writing things, but then like the show's point is like, no, that's how people are. They're really fickle and annoying and don't always do the best thing, not in terms of morally but just logically for their own benefit, just because they can't get over themselves. Where there's a lot of big egos in this show. We'll talk about performance. This show is very much about performance. I think this is a subheading here. What else have I written down here about Season 1 versus Season 2? Initially, I thought that Season 2 wasn't quite as exciting as Season 1, but towards the back end, Season 2 definitely surpasses Season 1 to me. Those last few episodes were truly amazing, the Jimmy stuff primarily. Do we want to talk about the Jimmy stuff right now? This is going to start to get hard to follow if you haven't seen the show. Jimmy is our Christopher Moltisanti, kind of. He's like Nucky's protege, but then he gets sent to Chicago for safekeeping because he's in trouble in Atlantic City. He makes friends with Al Capone there. These names you've heard in like gangster lore, they all start popping up. It's fun when you do historical fiction like that. Black Sails had that a lot, where like Blackbeard would show up and you're like, hey, I know Blackbeard, I know Teach from One Piece. So when somebody says he's fucking whatever Teach, and you're like, oh fuck, Blackbeard just showed up. There's a moment like this in the pilot for me of this show where Jimmy's just talking to this little fella who's driving Torio around, and at the end of the scene they're like, oh, I'm Jimmy Darmody, how you going? And he's like, I'm Al Capone, and you're like, hold the fuck up, this dude must be important, I know that name. Like I feel like I've heard the name Rothstein before, and Lucky Luciano was mentioned in The Sopranos and probably a bunch of other mobster stuff, so I knew that name. I didn't know who Nucky Thompson was. I think when I was like starting to look around at Boardwalk stuff to figure out if I actually wanted to commit myself to watching it, I clicked on the thing and found out like Nucky Thompson was a real person. Clicked on the Wikipedia page. I think he was an old man in the Wikipedia page, so I don't think any fake out deaths for Nucky I'm not going to be believing, because I'm pretty sure I saw an old bald man as his profile picture on Wikipedia. Is that what you would call the little display picture? I guess it's his profile page, and it's a picture, so it might be a profile picture, but whatever. Jimmy is the protege. He ends up, season 2, he is kind of the main antagonist, not really. The Commodore is kind of the main protagonist. It's basically Jimmy fighting Nucky. Nucky kind of grew up as his father, but now Jimmy's real father is here trying to get him to undermine Nucky, and Jimmy's very internally conflicted, and so is Nucky, having to go up against each other. Jimmy ends up pissing off, I don't know his name. I thought he was Russian initially, but I think he's a Jewish mobster as well. I don't know if mobster is the right term. But the dude who always calls Jimmy Boychik. God, that dude's performance is incredible. There are some names that I really should know that I don't know. Like the little Jewish dude that hangs out, who's like Rothfield? Arnold. What's his last name? Why am I fucking up? Because I love that character too. Some of these names I'm not as good at yet. I'm pretty bad with names. Usually I only talk about things once I've watched the whole thing, and then I know all the names. But the little Jewish dude that's always hanging out with Luciano, I love his performance. I love his voice. It's very 20s to me, whatever that means, as if I have a reference for that. But that's the feel it gives off. He's like the little fella. He's real good. Why was I bringing him up? I was bringing him up because I didn't know names. I don't know his name. I always forget Jimmy's mother's actual name. I think I just refer to her as Jimmy's mother, but I do know Angie's name, which she isn't that big of a character. But Torio I've got down. Rothstein, I think. Rothstein is his name. Nucky Thompson, Eli, Jimmy. We can start naming off people. Margaret. I couldn't name the pretty Irish man. Fuck. Maybe I could. No. But whatever. I'm going to fuck up some of these names here. If you're a Boardwalk fan, a big-time Boardwalk fan, I'll describe him enough for you to get who it is. But the Jimmy stuff primarily at the end of season 2 is the best stuff in this show, I think, so far. Maybe besides Chalky's fucking monologue about his father, which is still... I rewatched that when I was taking notes for whatever this video was going to be. God fucking damn, is Chalky fucking incredible. Whoever is playing him in that scene is incredible. It's just so good. That fucking monologue, the vulnerability, the sadness, the happiness, everything in that monologue and the performance is so fucking good. We're going to talk about that later. But the Jimmy stuff primarily was the best stuff, I think. Anne's death was a major shock to me, which happens in the 3rd to last episode or the 4th to last episode of the season. I thought I'd been spoiled that Jimmy was going to die. When I was trying to get people's names right, at the beginning of the show, I started recognizing a lot of the actors. Like, I know Al Capone's actor, Stephen Graham, I think. He was in The Irishman, and I couldn't place him. And then I was like, he's the dude from The Irishman. There's other ones, like the girl in episode 2, who's like just in that one episode, is the prostitute that rapes Don in Don's flashback in Mad Men when he's just like a kid. There were other actors that I recognized that I was trying to place. Some that I didn't recognize, I guess I thought were other people. But I was looking that a lot up, and to look that up, I ended up on the Boardwalk Empire wiki, and that's a big mistake because on the Boardwalk Empire wiki, they have if characters die. Now, I was spoiled on all those brothers in season 1 dying. I clicked on their page because the leader of them is Benny from The Sopranos, who also apparently plays Daxter in all the Jack and Daxter games, which was a shock to me. But, I didn't see that Jimmy died. I saw that Jimmy killed the Commodore by stabbing him, and that's before I knew that he was his father or anything like that. I think that was just revealed in the beginning of season 2. Though it was definitely teased. No, it was at the end of season 1, right? Because the poison and everything. But I don't think that was something that's stated from the start. I know Nucky and the Commodore in the pilot, I think, talk about Jimmy, or in the second episode they say, like, Jimmy left or whatever. And I was like, why would this person know who Jimmy is, the Commodore? But obviously that makes sense in the end. But I remember the reveal of that being like a big, like, oh, that's really cool that they kind of hid that and then revealed that later on. I feel like something like that happens in either The Sopranos or Mad Men that I can't remember right now, where it's like two characters exist and they have a weird type of relationship, and then it's like, that son, that's the son. Okay, I get it. But but on the Jimmy page, I didn't actually see that he got killed. Like, it didn't say shot by Nucky. It said the actor stars in seasons 1 and 2 of Boardwalk Empire. So I thought either he moves away or he's not in the show for the rest of it. Maybe he gets killed. So there's this scene with Ange and Jimmy, which is their last scene together, cleverly. Where I could tell that it was like their last scene. Now, I'm very fascinated most recently with last scenes between characters. On my rewatch of Mad Men, I started to realize, like, at the back end of my first rewatch, because I've rewatched it like 4 times now, because it's the fucking goddamn best thing I ever saw in my life. At the back end of that, I started more noticing when characters' final scenes together were. Because when you're going through Mad Men for the first time, like, I think, like, Joan and Peggy's... No, I think that's in the last... But there's, like, the last Joan and Don scene or something is in, like, the third to last episode. And when rewatching, I was like, holy shit, this is their last scene together. And then you start realizing... Obviously, the writers know this is their last scene together. So there's a lot of impact in there that you don't realize until you realize that it's their last scene together. I think I've started to... develop a sixth sense for sort of figuring out when it's two characters' last scenes together, because Ange and Jimmy are very quiet in this scene in the way they talk to each other. It's very much about their relationship. It's very much clearing, like wrapping everything up about their relationship, where they're quietly like, why did you marry me? Why did you marry me? And they're both like, do they love each other? Don't they love each other? I wrote down here that it's very similar to the Robert and Cersei scene, which is actually their last scene together, I think. No, because they fuck it up because Cersei gets slapped by Robert after that. That scene wasn't in the books. It really doesn't make any logical sense to be in the narrative. Cersei and Robert would have never had a conversation like this. But it's an incredible fucking scene nonetheless, even if it makes no sense, just because of the performances of the actors and the characters, and they're allowed to be honest in that moment. And that scene very much reminded me of this Ange and Jimmy scene. So I was getting that vibe, and I was like, oh, this is the last scene they ever have together, because I thought Jimmy was going to get killed or something. I didn't think Ange was going to get killed also. And then the dude who says boy chick all the time, who I was like, don't piss this guy off. He's clearly fucking terrifying to Jimmy. Not to Jimmy. Jimmy's clearly not terrified, but he's terrifying to the audience in his performance. He seems ruthless, like he'll do anything. And he very much does when he fucking kills Ange and her girlfriend. That scene is so well done, where somebody's in the shower and you assume, because the last you saw at the end of that last scene I was talking about with Ange and Jimmy, they end up going to bed together. So you're like, oh, Jimmy's in there showering, and the scene very much plays it off. But then you remember, after seeing it, when the girl comes out and gets shot, and the boy chick dude is like, what the fuck? Because Ange is lesbian too. She might just... I guess she's bi, because she chose to get into a relationship with Jimmy. She very much has more of an affinity for women, it would seem, than men. She has 2 girlfriends over the course of a 2-season stint in the show, because she gets killed here. But this new girlfriend was only introduced in like 1 episode. They have like 1 scene together where it's very much implied that they're hitting on each other. And you're like, oh, this is probably what happened between them. And so when she comes out of the shower, you're like, oh, fuck, because Jimmy isn't there. He's somewhere else. Because he's gone off to sell his part of the liquor. He ends up back in Princeton or whatever. He roads back there, and then we get the flashback the following episode. But it's just like, that was the most shocking thing in this entire show to me. I think it's the thing that affected me the most. I really liked Ange as a character, like a whole lot. And I felt like she was probably the most victimized character in this whole ordeal. Like, maybe this is another character whose name I should know but don't know, but the dude with the mask who's got half his face blown off in the war. He might be the most sympathetic character in the show, but he's also terrifying because he's like sociopathic in the way he just kills people. It's the juxtaposition of he's a monster. He actually is the monster. Half the time he's this innocent dude, and half the time he's the monster. That's why half his face is blown off. It's clever. It's like fucking, I don't know. We've all seen Batman. The two-faced fucking analogy works. But yeah, but besides him, maybe Ange is like the most sympathetic, who she has a son with this dude who she can't really leave because she can't sell her art to make enough money to support herself. She's surrounded by people. His mother helps her basically look after the kid. She can't be out gay because then she'll fucking get killed. The 20s was not a good time to be a lesbian. She nearly runs away with her girlfriend to France, but she ends up leaving with her husband again, abandoning her. And it's just like blow after blow of like, oh no, poor fucking Ange over here. And and then she just gets fucking killed. It's like, oh my god, what a fucking gut punch of like, she didn't deserve this. And the scene, she's like crying over the girl's body before he does it, and then the boy chick dude is like, Jimmy did this to you or whatever, and shoots her as well. I couldn't believe it. My hands were on my head, mouth agaped. I was like, whoa. That caught me off guard. I even tweeted about it. I said that was my Ned Stark moment. I couldn't believe it. It fucking depressed me for like a day. I would just think back to it and be like, fucking Ange is dead. What the fuck? They never had a chance. Where does personal responsibility and trauma intersect? But things get even more fucked up for this whole Jimmy side of the ensemble cast, because they all end up dead, basically. The Commodore Jimmy ends up killing him in like a stupor where he's still like coming in and out of fucking consciousness as he gets high on the heroin. He ends up dying again in the end. The mother and the masked man are really the only person that are around still after the fact. And the boy, of course. They never had a chance is the thing I wrote down. Because then it's revealed. Because then after that, it's like, oh no, Jimmy's going to be all fucked up. His wife is dead. She got caught, obviously, with a girl. So now everybody's making fun of her for being gay. That's a whole thing. And then we get the flashback episode. And Jimmy's relationship with his mother, it's so fucked up. It's like 3 generations of pedophilic incest. No, I guess maybe it's pedophilic on Jimmy and his mother's end. Jimmy's mother, the Commodore who used to run the city before Nucky, he gets in trouble, so he has to take a lesser role in the background. He basically raped Jimmy's mother when she was 13, because he likes young girls, as it's made obvious in the conflict in season 2. But Jimmy's mother is kind of still... She still is cordial with him and everything. She's very proud of her son and everything. But then there's all these little hints. Like when Jimmy's mother is first introduced, it's in episode 2, I think. And like Jimmy runs up and hugs her. And because she's super young, because she had Jimmy when she was 13, presumably. She looks like she could be like his second girlfriend, because we're already introduced to Ange, and it's like, oh, in The Sopranos, every fucking dude has a second girlfriend. In Mad Men, Don Draper always has second girlfriend, so it's like, oh, this is Jimmy's second girlfriend. He's a piece of shit, he cheats. But no, it turns out it's his mother. But the way they interact makes it definitely seem, because it's only revealed like minutes into the scene where they first but in the show we first see them together, that it's revealed that it's his mother, because the whole time you think it's his second girlfriend, because like when they see each other, she jumps into his arms and starts kissing him on the mouth, not too lovingly, so it's like you mistake it, and then repeatedly there's little hints dropped at like she's kind of weird as a mother. Like, she always kisses him on the mouth. She does it in front of some other people at some point, and they all look weirded out by it. She mentions at the beginning of season 2 that she used to kiss him on the winky when he was little, after she'd do his nappy. And it's just like, and Ange just looks at her like, what the fuck did she just say to me? And it's like, I guess it's just innocent motherly thing, and then it's revealed in the flashback episode in episode 11 of season 2, after everything has gone to shit, Ange has already been killed, that in fact it was more of a abusive pedophilic relationship between Jimmy and his mother, where at least in this college episode where we flash back to Jimmy in his college days, she does come to visit him in college, and there's like this train goes past, and it's very loud and bombastic, and it's just terrifying, and they do have sex, the mother and the son. And that's where this they never had a chance thing. Oh, and then at the end of the episode, Jimmy ends up back there, and he's not having a flashback anymore, and he ends up killing his father. And after he tries to choke his mother out, having remembered this probably traumatic memory he tried to repress. But then the Commodore saves him and stabs him, and then he kills the Commodore in return. And then the mother tries to be like, I know you didn't mean it later. And then she's got his kid in her arms, and she's like, now that Ange is dead, the mother, and like Commodore is dead, they're the only members of the family left, and she's like, I'll take care of you guys, don't worry. And it's like, oh no, this fucking potential pedophile has now Jimmy's kid in her arms and is heading up to the bedroom to put him to sleep, and it's just like, ew, get away from that kid. This is completely fucked up. Everything is going wrong for Jimmy. And this part that I wrote down here, they never had a chance, is kind of goes into this, where does personal responsibility and trauma intersect? Like, just what a fucked up situation this is. Mostly for Ange to have accidentally gotten pregnant by a member of this family and having to be tied to them, basically, for financial gain, I guess, for financial stability. Because in the college episode, it's pretty clear that she got pregnant, and she's like, and Jimmy's like, all right, I guess we have to be together for the kid, and she's like, Jimmy, you barely know me. And that's just like kind of telling of like she didn't really choose this. She just got accidentally pregnant with a dude she was kind of into, I guess, and then she gets wrapped up into this fucked up scenario where he's actually connected to the mafia, well, mobsters, not the mafia, and a pedophile mother and a pedophile father, and it's just like, this poor woman didn't deserve this. But then Jimmy doesn't deserve this. He didn't do anything wrong. He's not the pedophile here. He went off to war to try and escape all this, came back fucked up, and now kills people for a living. He seems to generally be okay. He's like kind of a prick a lot of the time. He does sleep with Ange after she says no a bunch of times, which is probably the worst thing he does. He kills people too. What is worse, murder or rape? I'm not sure, but it's just like, what the fuck? What a fucked up situation for the Commodore to be his father, who raped his mother, who he drugged and raped her when she was 13, and apparently she maybe has been sexually abusing him as well his whole life. And for him to end up in a situation now that maybe he's only out here, maybe the only person he actually does love, though maybe not really, who he's just in a relationship with out of like convenience because of their child, she gets killed. She's also found with another woman, which is probably not good for his fucking ego or whatever the fuck. And everybody's making fun of him for that. It's just like everything has been fucked up for Jimmy, and then he ends up dying the next episode with basically nothing to lose. There's a great scene in here with the masked dude where he says, "You're my friend, right?" And they like reiterate, yeah. And it's sort of because Al makes fun of Ange and the girlfriend and says he would have done it too because they think Jimmy's the one that killed them. It's kind of like Al was supposed to be Jimmy's friend, kind of, but he seems to have abandoned him now that he has Lucky and the little Jewish kid that, again, he's not a kid, that I forget the name of. But yeah, it's like, oh, Jimmy's only friends, his only allies really were Ange and the masked dude. I can't believe I don't remember his name. I'm sorry. And his kid. And it's like, fuck. And basically, where does personal responsibility and trauma intersect? Like, Jimmy obviously does terrible things because he's traumatized because of all the terrible things he's gone through. And Jimmy's mother is probably just sexually abusive because she was sexually abused. And like the Commodore, I guess, we don't know about any sexual abuse in his past, but he's probably just a piece of shit. But it's just like you can't even really blame these people for being this fucked up. And it's just this unraveling of this situation here is like an incredible bunch of reveals. The way the cinematography, I guess, and how it's shot in the framing in that second to last episode of season 2, where Jimmy is having these flashbacks between trying to sell the alcohol and getting high on the heroin and not knowing that Ange has been murdered and repeatedly getting these lines from Ange, because it's the last episode we ever see Ange in, right? It's in the flashback, so it's got this double impact of like, ooh, hitting you right in the gut. And it's and they repeat the line like as he's coming out of his flashback stupor, drunken, high, fucked up stupor. It keeps replaying the line like Ange keeps saying, "Jimmy, I have to leave now." And obviously, she said that in an earlier episode after she left, after they slept together, I think. And obviously, it's her saying, like, "I'm dead now, you've got to wake up." And, like, he gets calls from his mother about how he has to come home. It's just, oh, what an episode that is. What the fucking fuck. And then you find out he only didn't continue college because he ended up beating up his professor for being gropey with his mother. And it's just like, oh, what a fucking bad rap. Where does the blame begin and the trauma excuse? And how far do these lines go? I know that's for you to figure out while you watch the show, thinking about what you think about these thinking characters. Fuck me. That's just our first up point, and we've probably been talking for 40 fucking minutes or something. Nearly. And we haven't even got a warning if the laptop's going flat. Let me lower the brightness a little bit so we can drag this on a little bit more. Huh? How about that? My Man and Other Songs. I guess we can switch. We just described the Jimmy thing. I don't know if anybody would have gotten anything out of that if you haven't seen the show. I don't know. Hopefully some of you have. Comment below to say that you've seen the show and that you actually were listening and understood any of that. But all that was fucking spectacular. Jimmy's death again was fantastic. Kind of plays more into Nucky's story than anything else, but yeah. My Man and Other Songs. The soundtrack is very 20s inspired, obviously. A lot of it is just diegetic 20s music. My Man, which plays at the end of season 2, episode 3 or 4, after Margaret, who we haven't even mentioned Margaret once, I don't think. After Margaret walks up the stairs, after the servant girl who's also sleeping with the Irish dude who finds them together, which is an awkward situation for all involved. But she grabs Margaret by the arm and says, "Peggy, whatever, that's you, isn't it?" And I misinterpreted that as being like Margaret changed her name and is duping everybody, and she's actually the mastermind here. I thought she was the Don Draper. We just weren't seeing it from her perspective, and she was manipulating things. But it seems to just be she called her family and they said that person was dead because they like to think she's dead because they don't like her. I think that was the implication, because later in that season she goes to visit her family in New York or Brooklyn or wherever they are. But whatever. My Man plays at the end of that episode. That song is fucking incredible. It's a cover from an old 20s song, I think. I kind of did a little bit of research on it. Covered by a modern artist. What's her name? It's gonna be it's in my fucking search history. I downloaded it. I listen to it all the time now. It's just fucking incredible. This song is so good. The ups and the downs of the song, especially in the back end where she says, "Furthermore, the first I'm here. Furthermore, the last I'm here." And every time it's just got that 20s aesthetic, but the recording quality isn't so shit because it wasn't recorded in the 20s. Obviously, this was recorded in fucking 2011 or whatever when the soundtrack came out. It's just so good. It's got the vibe. She nails the aesthetic of the sound of the fucking of the time period. Just incredible stuff. We'll keep her on the fucking screen while we talk about the rest of the show. Just that song might be one of my favorite things to come out of the show. I listen to it all the time. Let's move on to my fucking second dot point. This show is very much about performance, I think. That 20s vibe is fully captured, and the stereotypes of the time are channeled perfectly into the different characters. Doyle laughing after each one of his lines, Boychuk just being a terrifying presence. That's what I'm going to call him, since I still don't remember his name. The Irishmen, they all sound weirdly Irish. Especially when Nucky goes to Ireland and talks to them. The one really tall dude who ends up getting killed, it sounds funny, alright? He sounds like an Irish stereotype, but it all fits for the time. Rothstein, the way he talks, feels very 20s and retro to me, even though he doesn't have an accent like the little Jewish dude does, because he very much has a New York old-timey accent. And the little fella there, Lucky, God, he's sexy. God, Lucky is a sexy bloke, isn't he? Don't we all agree? We did see his dick too. I think he's the only main character dick we saw. We've seen a lot of the girls. Lucy, obviously, is getting her top off all the time. That's some fantastic stuff. Jimmy's mother, we're seeing naked all the time. Though she's repulsive now. We don't like her. I feel like we see all of the main girls naked. I think we even see Margaret naked that one time. It's an HBO show. You get that added bonus if you're really into that. They all capture this performance. I fucking went on a tangent about dicks and boobs for a second. We're talking about presents. I don't know much about the 20s. I haven't seen a bunch of media set in the 20s. I think the closest thing is Barkano, which its dub is pretty spot on with the accents and things like that. And I must have picked them up through a bunch of different other stuff just over the year. But all of these click as 20s, 30s things to me. I don't know why. But Doyle laughing after he says all of his lines is something that I've seen somewhere before. Maybe it's in The Simpsons or something where they were doing parodies of this time. And there's characters like that, or vaudeville and something or another. But for whatever reason, I identified all these little ticks that came from the time and was like, oh, they're nailing them perfectly. Doyle laughing after each sentence is like that. The way Rothstein and the little fella talk is both like that too. I don't know. It just the performances, every character has this aura to them of being larger than life, but not being unrealistic in that regard. I don't think the Mad Men or Sopranos characters have this. They all sort of sound more real. which isn't always for the best, but they obviously work in those shows. But here, everybody sounds like Chalky even talks like a black stereotype would, but obviously those stereotypes come from how black people used to speak back then, and just embolden a little bit. Like he's not saying, I don't know, I shouldn't fucking do the accent, I'll get in big trouble, but like you can like tell from the performances that they're clearly channeling and they're listening to audio from the time and trying to replicate that type of voice. And it all works really well. But outside of just their voicing and little ticks and stuff, the performances really sell this show a lot. I feel like this is more of a Sopranos thing rather than a Mad Men thing. Again, if we were to do our chart, they would be at the opposite ends and Boardwalk would be in the middle. Where The Sopranos is sold a lot on its performances. Like James Gandolfini as Tony Soprano is maybe the best performance ever in anything I'll ever see in my life. And Paulie and Christopher and Silvio and Junior and Livia and Janice and Bobby Bacala, they're all up there as sort of like these like larger than life like idiots. The Sopranos likes to play their characters up as idiots more than Mad Men and Boardwalk do, definitely. The Sopranos sort of finds most of its comedy in that, whereas Mad Men and Boardwalk really aren't comedies in the same way The Sopranos is, where I would say like The Sopranos is almost a drama, then a comedy, then maybe action, whereas these are more crime dramas. Well, Boardwalk is, and Mad Men is more office drama, political. I don't know. They're different in these sort of regards. What point was I getting back to? And performances in The Sopranos is very important. In Mad Men, it's sort of more the dialogue, and the performances don't have to be larger than life. They're like sort of played down on purpose to sort of remove the romanticization of people, I guess. Whereas this plays them up, and it's very good. Performances, they come out and they're fantastic. If you've seen the show, you know exactly what I'm fucking talking about. If you haven't, I know, hopefully it's getting through to you. In fact, the only acting I've seen through a little so far is Steve Buscemi's acting. The only acting I felt was kind of not perfect in certain parts was Steve Buscemi sometimes, and I'll explain it here. It's perfect when he's mad and he swears so well, but some of these supposed loving scenes with Margaret fall a little flat for me, though that's kind of the point, I think. There's a scene at the end of season 1 where he goes into his backstory with his wife and his child who died, and then the wife died right afterwards, where, I don't know, there's something he doesn't sell it quite as well. I'm starting to sound like Junior Soprano here. He can't sell it. But it's all those types of scenes where he's like confessing his love to Margaret or connecting with her about a sad moment from his past that feels like there's something missing in the performance. Now, in that one scene where it's supposed to be sad and they're supposed to connect about his dead old family, I think that is just a little bad. In the love scenes, it's not love scenes, not sex scenes, but in the professing your love scenes, I think that's kind of the point where it's like this relationship isn't real in that regard. It's kind of plastic. I think I talk about this here. We're going to talk about the confrontation, then I'll get back to the point about there's a scene at the end of the finale with Margaret and Nucky where she decides not to testify against him, and they're going to get married. Well, they have been married, and it seems like they're going to be living together happily ever after, but then it's sort of undercut by the tone of the scene where Margaret is kind of realizing he just got off of everything, and I agreed to marry him and not send him to the chair, but like, now he's just going to go back to doing what he's always done, which is criminal underground shit. And she's like, oh, I kind of just fucked up. And Nucky is like realizing that she kind of isn't in love with him, and realizing that this relationship is kind of going to be a little hollow. And they're both like realizing it as this scene goes on. And I think that's like the point there. Like their romantic dialogue comes off transactional and plastic because that's what this relationship really is. So yeah, that's a cute little thing. There's a big confrontation at the end of season 2, which is interesting in its anticlimax, as is them coming back together in the finale. That's what I just talked about. There's like a confrontation they have where Margaret says, like, implies maybe she might testify against him, where I felt like maybe it was trying to be Carmela and Tony in Whitecaps, or Betty and Don when at the end of season 3, episode 11, their big long scene where everything comes to light. But it didn't hit on those same things, and I can't tell if that's what it was going for or not. I wasn't as invested in their relationship, though I'm not really invested in those other two relationships. Like, they're kind of awful and they kind of should split up, but the way in which things boil over in both those scenes of Betty finally finding out about Don's past, or Tony and Carmela finally saying everything they've ever wanted to say to each other and sort of, fuck you, punch my fucking fist through the wall, I've been dreaming of Furio. It's the greatest fucking thing I ever saw, that Whitecaps episode. But this wasn't on that level anywhere near it, basically. And I was wondering whether or not it was supposed to be. It was just like, I don't know, Margaret in season 2 is interesting in how she kind of becomes that Betty, Carmela, Skylar type character of being like the annoying housewife that like isn't actually doing anything as wrong as the male characters we like, but she's kind of annoying in her own right, which is the point, right? That you get more annoyed at these women for doing women stuff, like being worried about their children irrationally, or being annoyed at something trivial, or some it's clearly playing on the sexism there. And it's very clever, but she sort of falls into that thing of like, Margaret in season 1 is very sympathetic. You very much like Margaret. She has like her own plot line at the French place where she's being rivals with Lucy, and it's like, oh, she's clearly the underdog here, fighting from underneath, and you're like, but now in season 2, she's got people working under her, and she clearly doesn't treat them the best, and like, She's going to the church trying to confess her sins and getting guilty about everything. Is just like, it's not bad. Like, that's the best possible direction we could have gone with her character. It's just like, she's not as likable as she was in season 1, and that's kind of the point. It's entirely the point. And I love, it's very Carmela of her to like try, like she gives all of her jewelry and a bunch of the money she had been stealing from Nucky and hiding. And she gives it all to the church because she thinks she can try and like bribe God to make sure her child doesn't die of polio or doesn't become paralyzed because of polio, and it sort of relieves her guilt and things like that. It's very clever, and like, this is not, you're kind of doing it wrong. But that is the point. It's very good. It's interesting, the highway scene was the first time I felt Nucky was really a bad bloke, and that's something these shows all have to do with their morally ambiguous protagonists. There'd be Sopranos episodes like this where Tony had been likable for a while, so he nearly has to hit Carmela for not betting all her money on a horse or something, or gleefully talking about Christopher's death. I don't know how I feel about this, but this is something all these shows do with their morally ambiguous protagonists. Now, again, this isn't really done with Don because it's completely different. Don doesn't kill people. But you'll have episodes in The Sopranos where Tony, like, obviously in a lot of the conflict in The Sopranos, Tony is positioned to be who the audience roots for because, like, either it's a rival mobster, so it's kind of fair game to go after them and be mean to them, or it'll be somebody like in the this pedophile soccer coach episode where it's like, all right, this person is worse than Tony, so we're like rooting for Tony. Do it, Tony. Fuck him up or whatever. And then there's every once in a while where it's like not cathartic, and it's just supposed to be like, oh, it's like a reminder. Like, he's your seasonal reminder that Tony Soprano is a bad person when he, I don't know, he does a myriad of really bad things. Like, the one example that always comes to me where I was like, Tony is unreasonably, immorally awful, was the one episode where I think Carmela sells her spec house, right? She gets all the money, and Tony's encouraging her because he's going through a gambling phase. And he's like, you got to put all of that fucking $100,000 or whatever you just made of your own right on this one fucking horse because it's going to win. And then the horse wins, and then he gets really mad at Carmela. Carmela says, fuck you, go away. And then they get into a fight. And I think it's the closest besides Whitecaps that he comes to hitting Carmela ever. And Carmela just is like, what are you going to do? Hit me, Tony? What the fuck? And he's like, you're pathetic or whatever. And you're clearly on Carmela's side there. You're like, Tony, don't fucking hit her. What are you doing? And it's just sort of the reminder that Tony is kind of out of control and kind of bad. For the first time, Nucky throughout this has been dealing with rival mobsters. He killed Margaret's first husband, but he was abusive. So it's sort of like he gets a pass at each turn of like, they were in the rival mafia, so it's like, they're bad people too. And it's like, whatever the fuck. But this first time where he's like celebrating as if everything didn't happen, as if he didn't just kill Jimmy, as in he didn't just avoid going to jail, where he's just kind of back in business with his fucking yes men around him who are going to build this highway. It was the first time where I was like, ew, Nucky's like gross and like bad. And that was like the first time it's really crossed the line for me. And I was like, this is going to happen a lot, I guarantee, where we're going to be reminded, don't get too comfortable rooting for Nucky. This isn't a traditional fucking hero conquers all story. And it's great. I think Nucky may become more interesting moving forward also implies that maybe Jimmy isn't the first person he's actually killed. This is looking to the future. I think Nucky, where he goes from here, will be interesting because it's not going to be him rivaling internally or externally now. Though it's probably going to be a mix of both. It's probably Margaret that's not going to last. That'll have to come to a climax eventually. It didn't at the end of season 2. Maybe it does at the end of season 3. We'll have to see. He's avoided jail. I hope the lawyer lady woman. I like her character a lot. Her case fell through, so I hope she's like still around trying to collect evidence next season. I hope she doesn't just leave because the case got dropped. I don't think I talk about Van Holden or whatever his name is in here at all. It's probably my least favorite stuff in the show, but it's also very interesting. He is now on the run, I guess. He's probably going to become a monster. His story is sort of like the righteous man trying to repress all of his earthly desires with religion who gets corrupted by the city. First by Lucy, then by Doyle, it seems. I still don't entirely know what they've got going on. He was like feeding him information, I think, and money because he needed money to pay for Lucy's stuff. Obviously, his wife left him and all that. It's all interesting. But yeah, he can't be the governmental villain or antagonist anymore, and she's kind of taken over, and I like it. And she's sleeping with her second in command dude. They're fun. Saw her boobs too. Her boobs too. They were pretty great. I don't know. I like her too in that regard. I think she might be my favorite girl in that regard on the show, which is, I think, a weird choice, but whatever. I think Margaret and Nucky might have worked more as a will they won't they rather than now that they're all together. The payoff of them getting together the first time is really fun. Again, the lifeless transactional manner of their relationship is sort of the point. There's also a subplot with the pretty Irish boy. Yes, the pretty Irish boy that's like Tony's new driver. Nucky's new driver is also slept with Margaret that one time. It was very clear immediately he was brought in. He was the prettiest boy I ever saw. Then there's like the love triangle with the servant girl as well. They're fucking everything up there. That might develop into a Furio situation where Nucky gets mad if he ever finds out. Though, I don't know if this is the type of show where that sort of melodrama happens, where like, Nucky finds out and is mad that she slept with somebody else. Because their relationship isn't really like that, even though they are married now. But yeah, I think the will they won't they of Margaret and Nucky was really fun to watch, of sort of will Margaret lower herself to get this sort of charity from somebody she's not married to, and will Nucky like there's like episodes where Nucky's like, I don't want anything to do with this girl. She tells Eli or whatever, I don't want this, and it's interesting to see if they or won't they get together. But Nucky ends up getting together with her after he figures out that she sold out one of his liquor locations, and he's like, I'm not going to play games, Margaret. And it's very clever how they're like addressing things very directly in ways other stories wouldn't, where it would be drawn out for much longer. So yeah, that was all good. My favorite scenes so far, Chalky talking about his father is incredible. We already talked about that. Just probably the best scene in the show so far. Absolutely great. Nucky confronting Jimmy and the Commodore at the club. That's a fantastic scene where he walks up, he throws the lobster on the ground, he says, and he just starts going in Jimmy's ear like he didn't even ask her name. He just pointed at the one he wanted. And then the Commodore saying like, meet his eyes, boy, or something. It's just like, I fucking hate this prick. It's just very well... that scene is just working on so many regards, where it's like the three generations all in conflict there, if we can reference my Sopranos video that's not yet out. it's just really well done, that scene, and it's just like, because it plays the tension perfectly of Nucky gets there and they're already there, and Margaret's trying to get them to leave. We don't want confrontation, and then Nucky goes straight for the confrontation. It was really good. I love that scene. Every scene in the last episode of season 2, everything in the second last episode of season 2, we already took that. Truly one of the best episodes I've ever seen in anything. Definitely true. Everything with Lucy. I love Lucy. She's great. Haha, I said the thing. I think she's gone from the show now. I think she was another one I saw where I looked up the actress and it was like she stars in season 1 and 2 of Boardwalk. But she seemed like she really wanted to look after the kid, but maybe that was just a front. Like they're constantly doing fronts in this show where they're actually talking about something else, because it seems like Van Olten is the only one looking after the kid, and they just moved with the new girl that he got to help out to like Middle America or something. Maybe he's out of the show now too, though I don't think so. But that sucks. Lucy was awesome. The subplot with Jimmy. She's another one that has like a 20s thing to her voice in her performance. It's incredible. The "we were fucking" scene or line is really good, and I think that's in the pilot. That was really funny. The subplot with Jimmy and the prostitute. The show has strikingly visceral at some points. Jimmy has a thing for the damaged with the mask face dude. That is a very underlining, like ingratiating. It makes you like Jimmy a lot, that he like has this relatability to like sort of people who have been damaged. Like with the girl, he likes her even after her face gets all cut up by the one dude. And he befriends the masked dude because obviously his leg is all fucked up from the war, so he sort of understands the plight of people who these like misfits that don't fit in. Because initially the girl is a prostitute too, and he like relates to the struggle there too. But that scene, that like subplot with the prostitute girl, I was super into. I was like loving it. I wanted them to run away together to California or whatever. I wanted her to end up being a fucking actress, and then for it all to end. The suicide I initially thought was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. Then I sort of turned against it. Now I'm back to thinking it was the greatest thing I've ever seen. Because I was like, when they were playing out this thing, she seemed to be handling it well, like the fact that her face was all cut up. And Jimmy wasn't turning on her. Like in The Sopranos, there would have been a thing. Tony literally has a girlfriend whose face gets all burnt up, and he's like, I don't want to be with you anymore. I'll pay for the surgery or whatever. Don't talk to me ever again. Jimmy didn't have any inkling of doing that. He seemed to like still very much be into this girl and want to help her and everything like that. So it was like adorable in that sense, only for her to shoot herself after it seemed like things was maybe going to work out. And I was like, oh, they just did that so they don't have to write this character anymore. Because Jimmy obviously has to go back to Atlantic City, and we don't want to turn him against this girl, so she has to leave somehow. And it's just like, and it works in that sense if you want to think about it like that, but it also works in the sense of like everything seemed happy, but really she was internally not dealing with it well, and she was on opium a lot and deluding herself maybe a little bit. And there's a scene where she comes down to the bar and everybody like gawks at her face and things like that. So, and I feel like that's a very true to life thing where you think everything is going well with a person, and then sort of out of nowhere they kill themselves, and you're like, oh, I thought they were so happy or whatever. That's like a generic thing people say, I think. So it's like, the melancholy was so perfect in the moment, and I can't really explain why. But I don't know. I don't know. Is that one of the best things in the show that people talk about? I feel like that might be just a thing that I was really into. I don't know if people generally are super into that. Like the lemons thing and her smelling the lemons and him looking after her, and it's also good. It's also tragic. Everything Jimmy touches is fucking tragic and heartbreaking, but I really like that stuff. And all this stuff with the face mask dude, you really feel for him too. The meeting of all the old heads annoyed with the younger idiots, and the first scene at the end of season 1. Any scene where you have Torrio, Rothstein, and... Is it Rothstein? Why am I... Every time I say it, I feel like I'm saying it wrong. It's Rothstein, not Stein. But, anytime they meet, it's awesome. Like, in the Armory in season 2, it's super cool, where they're like, our little fucking shitheads are all fucking us over, and we gotta figure out what to do with it. And I like how they don't have any conflict. Like, I think I said that here. I like that there was no forced misunderstanding drama. Like... Nucky is told that the person who tried to kill him came from Philadelphia, so I was like, oh no, he's going to go after Torio and there's going to be some shitty thing where they're at war over a misunderstanding, when it's not. They just talk about it and they're like, I knew fucking Al was doing some stupid shit. There's not a lot of like personal vengeance from Nucky. He's not like, well, I want to kill Al then. It's just like, how do I stop this from happening? But yeah, like just having those three characters, like Torino, wait, am I saying that right now? Rothstein and Nucky all in the same place is really good. At the end of season 1, Jimmy, Luciano, and Al Capone are all there too. Al's story when he goes to like the synagogue and is like told to stop making jokes and grow up, and then he tells Lucky to stop making jokes at the end of season 1. That was all a really cute little character progression moment. Al's deaf kid was really good and making you sympathize with Al Capone, even though he's like crazy. Al Capone has big a Joe Pesci from Goodfellas energy. He feels like very much like he's like funny and he's cool to be around and he's your friend sometimes, and then he's flying off the fucking handle sometimes. So it'll be interesting where his character goes. I could definitely see him being like though I looked up his Wikipedia page and he looked like he was old in his profile picture too, so I don't think he's dying anytime soon. But I could see Al ending up being like a big antagonist at some point. I feel like Al Capone is a name, like probably the most famous name in this show or something. I don't know. Which makes it even sadder because he makes fun of Anne's death later. Yeah, because him and Jimmy like connect, and Jimmy's like so understanding of his deaf kid because he likes, again, like the Damaged or whatever, or the Misfits, and Al's kid is deaf, and he's like ready for Jimmy to like make fun of him, but he never does. And yeah, so it's like, oh, but Al doesn't give that same respect for Ange when she dies. I don't know. That scene, I was very betrayed by that scene where Al's laughing with Luciano and the little Jewish dude about Jimmy's death. No, about Ange's death. Margaret's scene with the temperance movement leader about whether or not she should be with Nucky. There's this scene where the temperance movement leader is an older woman who's clearly a leader in women's rights, and they set up this scene where Margaret goes to her to ask for advice because she basically knows that she can be with Nucky and live basically pretty rich as like his paramour, basically, or whore, as other people would say, and like get all this luxury, but she would have to sleep with him and like wouldn't get love out of it. And she's also kind of religious, so she's like, I don't know if this is a pure thing to do, and she goes to this temperance leader woman about it, and the way the scene is set up and the way it sort of starts off, you're like, oh, she's gonna call Margaret a whore and say you shouldn't do this is disgusting, you shouldn't rely on the man, you should do things yourself. But she actually goes the absolute opposite direction of like, the ballot box will free us, do what you have to do, you don't need like me to tell you what's right, you should do what's best for you and your children, sort of thing. And it was such a great scene of like, I expected it to go one way and it went the absolute opposite, and it's like, oh, this character just became 100% more likable to me, this temperance movement leader. It's just like, she's not judging Margaret for this decision, for doing what she has to do, basically. And that's cute. All right, we're nearly at the end, actually. The laptop is flashing red, though. Going forward, I already talked about all this. The Masked Man, I don't know, he's still alive, and Jimmy's mother is still alive, and they're the only people from the Jimmy, like half of or quarter of the cast that are still alive. He didn't get killed off, and neither Jimmy's mother. She cleverly has Lucky as a connection to maybe connection to continue her character. I don't think she's done. I think she'll be an annoyance in Nucky's side for a long time coming, looking for revenge and things like that. And she's been sleeping with Lucky as well, so that's a way for her character to continue. She could like latch herself back onto him and try to manipulate him into doing things against Nucky. He could very easily become an antagonist for a season 2. She's probably one of the most hated characters in the show right now, so her trying to get Lucky to fuck with Nucky would work. Masked Man can work for Nucky, I guess. Nucky and Margaret won't last. Peggy, which we talked about earlier, which was potentially Margaret's actual name. Well, is her actual name. But did she change her name? Is she hiding things? We'll have to see. The The masked dude isn't going to work with Nucky. That's the only thing I could think of. If anything, he's going to try and kill Nucky. I don't know what he does from here. I don't think he's just going to be written out of the show. He's too interesting of a character. Will he fully go off the handle? Will we feel even worse for him when he gets killed after killing a bunch of people just because everybody was awful to him? That would suck. Now, this is something I wrote up for stream late before. Do I have anything? These are all older thoughts. He and Jimmy's mother were fun, and boy is he hot. Look, I don't know. I think these are all reiterations. I could tell that the Eli drama was coming, and the father. More visceral sex scenes than other shows, not as much as Game of Thrones early seasons, but fun. Yes, the sex scenes are fun. Don't know how hot I am about the opening. The opening has definitely grown on me. I have to end right now. We got through everything I wanted to say, actually, which was interesting and cool. But with that being said, I'm looking forward to continuing Boardwalk here as we go into Season 3. I'll probably watch Season 3, Episode 1, right after this, because I had been stopping for a few days in order to record this as sort of an encapsulation of my thoughts so far. Because I was supposed to record this last night, but then I didn't, so I couldn't watch anything today. It was pissing me off. But I gotta go before the laptop continues going dead. I don't know if I'll do this after Season 3 again, or if I'll do 2 seasons, or if I'll wait until the whole thing's done. But I had a lot to say, and I wanted to get it off my chest, and chat wasn't very receptive to it on stream, so I thought I would do it as a YouTube video. With that being said, we're out of here. Hopefully there's more second channel content soon. I hope the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood thing is already out. Maybe it's out after this. You'll have to wait and see. With that being said, support links in the description below. Thanks.